Yeah.
We are thankful to have with us tonight our keynote speaker, Dr. Tony Zipple. It is nighttime for us, but it's morning time for Tony. Yeah, so let me introduce him a bit. Tony is a psychologist who consults, teaches, and coaches in areas related to resilience. He received his doctorate from Boston University and his MBA from the University of New Hampshire. He also holds multiple certifications in positive psychology, happiness studies, coaching, and positive neuroplasticity. Tony is also the overseas consultant for Caring for Life and has been actively contributing to the mental health landscape, including the rehabilitation program for persons with mental health issues, and now in the suicide prevention work. So for the past few years, it has been difficult for many of us. Every individual and teams have faced challenges, stresses, and even trauma. Some of us may have come across people with suicidal ideations. So tonight, we will hear about the following subjects: impact of suicide on people left behind and people with suicide ideation, inner resources to build resilience and encourage them to deepen social connections. So during the presentation by Tony, you may post your question in the Zoom chat, and please note that we may not have enough time to answer all the questions. So now let me pass the time to Dr. Tony, and let us welcome him with our Zoom reaction. Dr. Tony, please.
Well, thank you, and it's wonderful to be with you. It's always a pleasure to spend time with my friends in Singapore, and a real honor to be able to think with you about this important topic. And I wanted to thank Lena for her music. You know, I hadn't considered the impact of music on resilience and the importance that it has for so many of us in helping to build resilience. So for me, that was a wonderful way to start, and I really appreciate that. Let me do a sharing of screens here. All right, I got screen share going now. Okay, good. And we're going to talk a little bit about resilience in the next 40 minutes or so. So I can get this to change.
Tony, we are not
Yes.
seeing the full screen of your presentation. Would you mind putting it on slideshow, maybe?
Hold on a second.
Okay.
That
so
better?
It is, we are seeing a bit of your no, yeah, I think this is much better. Thank you so
Okay.
much. Yeah.
So some good news as we think about suicide globally. Suicide across the world has been declining steadily over the last several years. And I think that has to do with the work that goes on in Singapore and in many other countries to reduce suicide risk, to build resilience in people who are at risk. And we see steady decline in suicide globally. And that's true in Singapore as well. As I was looking at the data about suicide in Singapore, you know, the work that Caring for Life and others are doing, I think has led to a sharp drop in the total number of suicides in Singapore. So the work that you're doing is saving lives, and that's really impressive and remarkable. But what I think we need to pay attention to is that suicide, when it occurs one person at a time. And it's not the same for every group. And so for some subgroups in Singapore, the rate of suicide is actually increasing. And when you look at young people, aged 10 to 29 in Singapore, you know, we see continued increases. So while total suicide is decreasing, some subgroup suicide is increasing. So the work you're doing is making a big difference overall. And there are some targeted areas still where we need to do work. there are so many reasons why people think about suicide. You know, we used to think that suicide was just an issue of mental illness. And while mental illness contributes to this, you know, substance abuse, economic setbacks, losses of loved ones, even things like discrimination and bullying that may occur in school, things as simple as being lonely and isolated are significant contributors to risk for suicide. So when we think about suicide and what causes suicide and what we can do to prevent it, it's not just a clinical issue. It's not just if we had better mental health services, this would be okay. This is really a community problem that all of us have responsibility for. I have a lot of biases about this. I'm a strong believer that one of the solutions to reducing suicide is building resilience. If we have greater resilience, we have greater resistance to the pushes towards suicide. You know, and the things I mean by resilience, I'm thinking about if we have better social connection and friends and family around us, if we have more joy and positive emotion in our life, if there's more hope and optimism for the future, it gives us the strength to face challenges. You know, if we build inner resources, we're better able to resist the risk of suicide. So when I talk about resilience, what I really mean is that resistance to giving up. You know, it's a psychological quality that helps us to get up and keep going, even when we're bumped around by life. Because bad things happen to all of us. We all have things in our lives that we prefer didn't happen. The question isn't whether those happen. The question is, do we have the inner resources and the supports that we need to keep going and to overcome those challenges? You know, when I talk about resilience, sometimes people think I mean, you know, positive thinking, that if we just, you know, pretend that everything is okay and think only positive thoughts, everything will be all right for us. And I don't mean that at all. Resilience is about having optimism, but realistic optimism. You know, bad things really are bad. And no matter how much we pretend that they were good, when bad things happen to us, they hurt. They're difficult. They create distress. Bad things in our lives really are bad. So resilience is not about ignoring those bad events. It's not about pretending that they're really good or that, you know, it's all for the best. It's about making a choice to build our own inner resources so that we have the strength to face those bad events and to make the most of our lives in the face of the things that occur in all of our lives that we wish didn't. So I'm going to talk in the time I have about 3 strategies for building resilience. And there are so many, you know, there are hundreds of ways. And Lena was so gracious in sharing with us music as a strategy for building resilience. There are many ways to do it. But here are 3 that I want to talk about that I think are really core to this issue of building resilience. I want to talk about deepening social connection. I want to talk about gratitude, about taking in the good and how we pay more attention to good events and make use of those, and gratitude practices. Those 3, I think, are really foundational to building resilience. And I want to say that the caution I have at the bottom of the slide is real with all of this. None of the things I'm talking about substitute for good clinical intervention when somebody is acutely suicidal. You know, if somebody is saying, you know, I think I'm going to kill myself and I have a plan and I'm ready to do it, that's probably not the right time to say, have you thought about practicing gratitude? You know, you want to make sure that people who are acutely at risk get the support they need and that they stay safe. But for most of us, most of the time, for people who are struggling, and for most of us who are trying to recover from stress and trauma, these kinds of practices can make a big difference in our lives. So let me talk first about connecting with people. We know that loneliness is a big problem, and I've seen the data in Singapore specifically about seniors talking about how many people in Singapore are lonely much of the time. And loneliness and social isolation not just feels bad, but it's a health risk. The research that we've done in the United States says that loneliness, chronic loneliness, is the health equivalent of smoking 15 cigarettes a day. It shortens your life, it reduces your health, increases your risk for depression. Loneliness even results in a significant increase in dementia risk. So loneliness is a really bad thing. You know, more loneliness means lower resilience and higher risk of suicide and bad outcomes. Part of it is that human beings are wired for social interaction. It's part of our DNA. You know, we've spent millions of years evolving as social creatures, and being socially connected is so important to our very being. It's just how people are. Right. So we want to have opportunities for social connection. It's as basic as food, water, and shelter for us, part of who we are. There's a study that was done in the United States over a long period of time on adult development. It started in the 1920s, and they looked at a group of young men, did lots of assessment and testing, and then they followed them for the rest of their lives, doing more review of their lives. And they followed the children of these individuals. So we now have 100 years worth of data on adult development from this study. And Bob Waldinger, who was the head of that study at the time they did their 75th anniversary of the study, reviewed all the data and said that the clearest message that we get is this: good relationships keep us happier and healthier, period. They found in this study that people who had the best social relationships at age 50 were the healthiest and happiest at age 70. Having good social connections predicts health and well-being. So loneliness and isolation, we also know, is a strong predictor for suicidal ideation and behavior. People who have great social connection are at lower risk. They've got more resilience as a result of social connection. So what can we do to build social connection in our lives? You know, I think social connection happens when we share more about ourselves and learn more from other people about them. It's a process of sharing our lives with each other and getting to see each other clearly and valuing each other's lives. That's what social connection is about, the basis of all friendships and relationships. So how can we build those relationships? You know, I think that there are a lot of ways to do that. There was an experiment that was done around this a number of years ago by a psychologist named Dr. Aaron, where he said, could we take perfect strangers and put them together and have them go through a series of questions, and through those questions, share information about each other? And he found that just putting strangers together for an hour and going through a structured list of questions where they shared information about each other built friendships in complete strangers. So we know that we can do that. And it's a game that you can play yourselves with friends and family. It's called 36 Questions. You can Google 36 Questions and you'll find examples of it in a number of places. There are even articles where people have used 36 questions as a basis for falling in love, you know, or for deepening relationships with significant others. It involves 3 sets of 12 questions. Each set gets a little more, demands a little more disclosure than the last set. And you just take turns answering the questions. The whole thing takes about an hour to do. So there are questions like, given the choice of anyone in the world, whom would you want as a dinner guest? And you talk about that for 30 seconds. And we learn about each other by sharing things about us and listening to other people share things about them. So there are lots of examples of these kinds of ways to build connection with people and form relationships. I think that Making time is probably the biggest challenge in building better social relationships because it takes time and energy. So these are a few suggestions I have for finding ways in just our day-to-day lives to build better social connection. Even though we're all sitting on Zoom doing this, and in COVID, Zoom has been a godsend, making time to meet people face to face is better than being on Zoom if you want to form relationships with them. Taking time to actually get together is an important thing to do. You know, things like eating together or going for walks together, playing games with each other, things as simple as talking to strangers a little bit. You know, when we go to a food court, do we have to search for a completely empty table so that we sit by ourselves when we eat? Or should we say hello to somebody who's eating by themselves and, do you mind if I join you? You know, that looks good. Who are you? You know, meeting people and just having conversations with strangers on an elevator. You know, that's a nice dress that you're wearing. I like that. Short interactions with people make a difference. It's slowing down, it's taking time and prioritizing connecting with people and building relationships. So I think that's all I want to say about building relationships. The more social connection we have, the stronger our social connections, the more people we talk with informally, just share things about us and learn about, the deeper our connections become, and the greater our resistance to the pull that we have from bad things that may push us towards suicidal thoughts. A second strategy I want to talk about is HEAL. This is a specific intervention developed by a psychologist named Rick Hansen. And it's a way of countering some of our tendency to ruminate about bad things and to think only about the bad things that happen in our lives. You know, when you look at these two pictures of dogs, you know, I always like to ask people, you know, which encounter with a dog do you think you would remember 6 months from now? Would you be more likely to remember being jumped at by a snarling, dangerous looking dog, or that friendly dog that was sitting on the street that you walked by? And by the way, the friendly dog sitting on the grass, that's my dog. And as much as I like my dog, my bet is that most of you would remember the barking, snarling, dangerous looking dog 6 months from now. You know, and it's because we're wired to pay attention to bad events. It's just how we are genetically. You know, 15,000 years ago, it was a lot more important to remember where all the dangerous spots were than it was to remember, wasn't that a nice sunset 2 days ago? Remembering dangerous stuff was important to our survival. And so our brains have a built-in negativity bias. You know, our brains are wired to pay attention to risk and danger and bad things. We scan for it all the time and over focus on it. And you know, you think about the news today, you turn on the news and you get to see bad things happening all over the world. You know, so we really tuned in on that. And when we see bad things, we overreact to it. We lose perspective. We think those bad things are more common in the whole picture. The other thing is that we know from a psychology point of view that those bad experiences get installed in our memory faster and more strongly. They're much stickier. And the more of those bad experiences we have, the more likely it is that we pay attention to more bad experiences. And the more we pay attention to, the more we see, and the more we see, we pay attention to. It's a bad cycle that we get into, but it's based in our brains. Our brains are wired that way. Rick Hansen likes to say that our brains are like Velcro for negative experiences and Teflon for positive experiences. You know, the bad experiences are really sticky, the good ones slip away. So HEAL is a way of taking advantage of good experiences. You know, just having a good experience is probably not enough to make it useful. We not only have to have good experiences, but we need to install them. We need to take advantage of those good experiences and get them to stick in our brains a little bit more. And so HEAL is, how do you have a positive experience? How do you enrich it? How do you absorb it? And then linking it to negative material is really helpful. I want to show you each of those steps for a minute. So having a positive experience just means, calling to mind something positive in your life. It could be something happening right now. Isn't it nice that I have a cup of tea and I really enjoy that, and I'm fundamentally safe, and the air conditioning is working, and I have a comfortable chair, and I have friends around me. Whatever the positive experience is, it doesn't have to be big. So have that positive experience, bring it to mind. And we have hundreds and hundreds of those a day when we stop and pay attention. Once you've got that experience, for just a couple of breaths, enrich it. Make it bigger. Stick with it for 30 seconds and pay attention to the details. Who was there? What did it feel like? Were there sights and smells and sounds? Can you make that image of that experience bigger and brighter and more bold in your mind? So just for a couple of breaths, 30 seconds, let it grow. And then set your intention to really let that sink into you, to make that experience a part of you. It helps to think of it in physical terms. Maybe that experience is like a precious jewel that you're going to push down deep into your chest, carry with you, or it's like a cool shower on a hot day that soothes you and takes care of you. So let that experience that you're having, and it's getting bigger and bolder and brighter, really sink in and be a part of you. And then if you can, while you're holding that positive experience, let a little negative experience come in at the same time. And if you can have that positive experience on one hand, and in your consciousness, still allow maybe a small negative experience that I was late for a meeting, or the fight that I had with my children, or a flat tire that I had, whatever it would be, a small negative thing. If you can hold both of those together at the same time, you'll find that that positive experience continues to get bigger and brighter and more important and more deeply absorbed. And the power that that negative experience has begins to shrink. And that's because the positive experience continues to get consolidated in our brains, and it helps to shrink the power of that negative experience. So that's the whole heal thing. You can do that in 60 to 90 seconds. And what would it be like if you did that 10 times a day? If 10 times a day you stopped for just a minute and took in a good experience and really focused on it and let it grow, what happens is it begins to change the brain pathways that you have and make the opportunity to see good things more available to you. Tal Ben-Shahar, who's done a lot of work in this area, says, when we appreciate the good appreciates. When we take time to pay attention to those good experiences, the more we do that, the more likely it is that we see other good experiences. So slowing down and I don't know what happened here. Slowing down and taking advantage of those good moments and letting them grow is a practice that builds resilience over time. And there's so many ways that you can do heal. Set your smartphone to go off 5 or 10 times a day to remind you to do it. Do a heal experience at the beginning of each meal. There's so many ways that you can, in the course of the day, notice those positive moments, take a minute to step back and really let them sink in. So that's all I'm going to say about heal, but it's a really powerful, powerful intervention that you can practice. The one caution I have about it is, as powerful as it is, this is probably not something you want to do with a person who's acutely depressed or acutely anxious, or who's in the middle of very active, serious trauma. Those are people who need maybe immediate clinical intervention. But for most of us, most of the time, when we want to build resilience, build inner resources that help us resist the pull towards depression and anxiety and worry, it's a really powerful thing to do. Last thing I want to talk about in the time I have is gratitude. And gratitude is something that's been studied a lot in psychology. In fact, you know, writing and talking about gratitude as an important thing goes back thousands of years. 2,300 years ago, Cicero was writing that gratitude is not only the greatest of all virtues, it's the parent of all virtues. And what Cicero meant by that is that when we have gratitude for things that are happening in our lives, for the things that we see around us, it opens us up to everything else in the world and makes all other virtues possible. So there are ways in which stopping and being present and appreciating what's going on around us right now, in a sense, having a heal moment, having those gratitude moments makes it possible for us to appreciate and grow, and in this case, resist some of the pull towards depression and suicide. It helps us to build resilience. So I want to talk for a few minutes about gratitude. Now, when I talk about gratitude, gratitude has a couple of key components to it that we have to think about. One is that it's appreciation for something in our life that's really valuable and good, that's outside of us, you know? It's appreciation for something good in our life. And it's being grateful to some other place or person or thing that's made it possible for us. So gratitude is not only appreciating good things, it's recognizing that those good things, in a sense, are given to us, that we're lucky to have them. In some religious context, grace is a lot like that. You know, it's something that we get as a gift, not something necessarily that we deserve. And gratitude is like that, stopping and appreciating something of value that for some reason we've been given, right? And it's so important because it connects us to things that are larger than us. It takes us out of our, you know, immediate day-to-day life and opens up the world in front of us and says, we're part of something bigger. There's stuff out there that's taking care of me. And there's great power in that and great comfort in that. We know from the research that gratitude builds resilience and health. People that have regular practices of gratitude are physically healthier. They tend to have lower blood pressure. They're less prone to diabetes and metabolic problems. Their immune systems work better and they're more resistant to catching illnesses. They even live longer. Grateful people live longer than people who aren't grateful on average. So it helps us with physical health. It also, as you'd expect, helps us with emotional health as well. You know, our energy level goes up. We have higher levels of enthusiasm. We're less anxious and we worry less about things. We have more self-confidence. We have greater optimism. All kinds of things get better emotionally with gratitude, and our relationships get better as well. When we are continuously grateful in our lives, it connects us to other people. It reduces irritability. We tend to be less depressed. We do better problem solving with people. So in so many ways, gratitude helps us to build the kinds of inner resources that we need in order to resist the pull that people feel when they're feeling anxious, depressed, and maybe moving towards thinking about suicide. Gratitude builds resilience. One of the important things to think about with gratitude is that you know, my bias, I think the best gratitude is relational. You know, when we express gratitude towards other people, when people express gratitude towards us, it not only brings us into the moment and helps us focus, but it builds strong relationships. Remember the first part I talked about social connection. Gratitude between people builds social connection. It's foundational to great relationships. So there are so many ways we can practice gratitude in our lives that are valuable and important. You know, you can do something as simple as keeping a gratitude journal. At the end of the day, just jot down 3 or 4 things that happened during the day that you're really grateful for. And the magic in this is, can you make this practice not just a mechanical, oh, I have to write them down, I guess I'll write them down, my obligation for the day is done, but can you actually savor those moments, relive those gratitude moments a little bit as you write them down, use them as an opportunity to practice heal, take in the good around that and stick with it for a little bit. Keeping a gratitude journal is really a simple way to practice and build your sense of gratitude in life. Writing thank you notes and letters and texts to people is another wonderful way to do it. I know people tend not to actually write letters by hand anymore and mail them. But boy, doesn't it feel magical when you get a letter in the mail that somebody's taken time to write by hand? And even better when they say, it was so wonderful to see you. Thank you. I really enjoyed that. You make a difference in my life. What does that do for us? And the really wonderful thing is that it does great things for you when you write those letters. You don't even have to send the letters to people to make a difference. You can write a letter to somebody that was important to you who is now dead. And just the act of writing the letter and bringing to mind your gratitude to that person for the things they did for you, whether you ever talked to them about it or not, is helpful to us. You can even do things as simple as building more gratitude language into your day-to-day life. What's it like when we say thank you more often to people? When we express gratitude to people that we don't even know very well for things they do for us. In my own life, one of the things that I like to try to do when I'm in a restaurant, I like to know the name of the server. And I like to express gratitude for the server for being gracious and helpful to me in the work that they're doing in the restaurant. They feel good about that. I feel good about that. It's a way of building gratitude. Volunteering the way that so many of you do with Caring for Life and other organizations, spending unstructured time with friends and relatives and just appreciating that. And spiritual practices are really important too. At the base of almost every one of the great religions is all kinds of work around gratitude. When we sit at a table together to have a meal and say grace before the meal, what we're really saying is, in a sense, I don't deserve this bounty that I have in front of me and the friends around me that I'm sharing this with, and I'm so grateful to have it. It's a really powerful ritual that we have for building and expressing gratitude. You can even practice gratitude with gardening and golf. I don't know whether any of you are gardeners, but at the beginning of the gardening season for me, I like to plant tomatoes. And when I do that, I always think, just a couple of months from now, I'm going to have all of these tomatoes. We'll be able to can tomatoes and make tomato sauce. I'll have bushels of tomatoes. My little crop of tomatoes in my backyard garden will be wonderful. And it doesn't always work that way. Sometimes the squirrels and the deer eat the tomatoes. Sometimes there are caterpillars that eat the tomatoes. Sometimes we don't get enough rain, and it doesn't work very well. And at the end of the season, I maybe have 3 tomatoes. But I'm really grateful for those tomatoes because I know that in some way, all of these circumstances around me made it possible to have those 3 tomatoes. It wasn't just me. It was, the luck that I have and the fact that, the squirrels missed those 3 and we did get some rain, and I'm really grateful for that. So even things like gardening or golf where you might have had a terrible round of golf, but there were those 2 or 3 shots that were just magic. And that it was a little bit of luck that it happened, and you're grateful that it occurred. In our lives, we have hundreds and hundreds of opportunities to practice gratitude every day. My 3 favorite, just for your consideration, I like to keep a gratitude journal. I like to think at the end of the day, as part of my slowing down and getting ready to sleep, a few things. I don't write them down anymore. I just think them. A few things that happened during the day that I'm really grateful for. And I stick with those and let them sink in a little bit. You know, thanks a lot is a really nice thing too. You know, I'm a thinker. And so I like to sit back in quiet moments. I'm going to do it on my plane ride back from the work that I'm doing today as I go home. And I think about people in my life that I'm grateful to, people who have done things to me, maybe on this current trip, but maybe people that were helpful to me 25 or 35 or 40 years ago and helped to make me who I am and how grateful I am to them. So just thinking about those people and imagine thanking them for what they've done for you is a good practice. And building gratitude language into your day-to-day life, saying thank you more often and really meaning it are really simple ways to build more gratitude into your life. You know, so I wanted to share those 3 things with you because they're all really quick and easy. You know, we can build social relationships in 101 different ways. Sometimes it takes a lot of time and energy. Some are as easy as saying hello to the person on the park bench next to you and striking up a conversation. You know, heal is something that you can do in 60 seconds. And 5 or 10 minutes of that a day can make a fundamental difference in building resilience, inner resources that help you to be stronger as you face challenges. And gratitude practices, you know, you can build those into your day-to-day life. You know, a few minutes a day is all it takes to really strengthen your sense of gratitude about being in the world. At every minute, we have an opportunity to practice gratitude, or to build social support or to heal. You know, we always have a choice. And I love John Maxwell's comment that life is a matter of choices, and every choice we make makes us. You know, the question I think in front of us is, are we going to choose to do these things that help us to build resilience and help us to build resistance to the pull towards negative things and depression and anxiety? You know, when we choose to build resilience, you know, we're doing lots of good things. You know, we'll live longer, we have better health, friends and family around us, greater levels of happiness, and it reduces risk for depression and suicide. Again, greater resilience doesn't fix every problem that we have. No matter how resilient you are, bad things are still going to happen in your life. Now, I always say that there are only 2 kinds of people in the world. There are people who have had bad things happen in their lives and people who have just not been on the planet long enough. Because if you stick around, bad things happen, right? It's just how human life is. But by practicing these simple things, we can build our inner resources so that those bad things, as they happen, have less impact on us, bang us around less, and we can keep going and have good lives in spite of the fact that part of our reality is that bad things happen. So my challenge to you is, what are you going to do going forward today to increase your own personal resilience? What's your commitment to, as we leave here today, doing at least one small thing, expressing gratitude a little more, taking in the good a little more, building social connections a little more strongly? What are you going to commit to doing that's going to build your own personal resilience? So thank you. It's great being with you here today, and always a pleasure to be with my friends in Singapore. I'm so impressed with what you're doing, and the statistics show that you're making really great progress with it. So I'm going to stop with that and stop the screen share. And I think we've got a few minutes for questions if there are some.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Tony. I'm practicing my gratitude now to say thank you to Tony. And the rest of us, we can also do that through our Zoom reaction. But before we go to our break, I think there's some interesting comments while you are doing the presentation just now, Tony. Someone actually mentioned that, you know, grateful person has a younger look. What do you think about this?
I'm sorry, you broke up a little bit. Say that again.
Okay, we have some interesting comments that is in our chat room, and someone actually mentioned grateful person has a younger look. Is that why you are looking young, Tony?
Boy, whoever said that goes to the front of the class. It is absolutely true that grateful people tend to look healthier and younger. And it's because I think that there's a lot of research that's been done on happy people. We know that people who have higher levels of happiness tend to look better. You know, they when people look at them, they seem like people you'd want to be with. And so people who express lots of gratitude tend to be happier people. So I think that that's really smart.
Yeah, and someone also mentioned about this. It's almost impossible to be patient without gratitude. I think your message actually passed through to us that being grateful to people helps us in many ways in our life. As for this as an example, to be patient with people. What do you think?
I think that that's, again, a really brilliant comment. Boy, there are some really smart people in the room for this. You know, one of the things that is a really good practice when somebody is doing something that irritates us, instead of getting angry, can we reframe that and say, what can I learn from this experience? You know, when I'm angry or irritated, it's not just about that person, it's about me as well. And I'm so grateful to that person who's caused irritation, because it's an opportunity for me to learn some things about myself.
Yeah, thank you, Tony. And perhaps I will just bring up another comment here that I see in our chat room. Jiahao actually mentioned this. He's thankful for you, Tony, and he agrees with what you say. No matter how much he tries to avoid bad things, it will still be unavoidable. So might as well better to face it straight on. Yeah, I think this is good. What do you think, Tony?
I think that's exactly right. You know, it's why all of this, you know, power of positive thinking, if we just pretend that bad things are really good and there's a silver lining in every cloud and the sun will come up tomorrow and all of that happy talk, I think is counterproductive. You know, there was a high-ranking military officer in the United States named Jim Stockdale, who was the highest ranking officer who spent lots of time as a prisoner of war during the Vietnam conflict. And he underwent very difficult circumstances. And someone said, how did you survive that? He said, you need to be able to do two things. You need to have a clear, unflinching look at your reality. You need to have the courage to see the bad things that are actually happening. And you have to have unflagging optimism about your ability to make choices that are going to make your situation better. So can we recognize the bad things in our lives and that reality? It really is there, but can we hold at the same time optimism that there are things that we can do to make the best of the situation that we've got?
Thank you, Tony, for the advice and encouragement to make the right choice, everyone. Yeah, so now we are going into our break. And for this 5-minute break, allow me to actually introduce the next segment so that we can prepare for it. We will be having a panel discussion with Tony and also Kai, who is a community carer who worked as a private hire car driver and recently featured on the Straits Times for convincing her passengers who had suicidal thoughts to seek help. So later, this discussion will be moderated by Alex. So we will expect to hear more insights from them after the break. But if you have any questions, you may continue to post it in the chat room. Or if you have any comments, you can also post it in the chat room as well. So let's go for our 5 minutes break and come back on time. Oh, sorry, Tony.
I'm going to put in chat my email address.
Okay.
Because there are a lot of questions, and I'm sure we're not going to have time to spend time with everybody's questions at this moment, but people should feel free to look me up on email, and we can always chat by email or set up a Zoom time for a quick call, those kinds of things. So I'm happy to follow up with any questions that we don't have a chance to do here.
Thank you so much, Tony, for giving us this option. So Tony will be putting up his email on the chat room as well. So let's go for our 5 minutes break and come back on time. Thank you.
All right. 5 minutes break up. Is everyone back? Okay, if you're back, please on your video, right? So that we know you're there. I took quite a nice sip of drink. That was a really good sharing. And I myself had learned from Tony, although I have had this opportunity to interact with him so many times, but each time when I interact with him, I always bring something new back home. And that was such a wonderful sharing today as well. But we have not come to the end of the event yet. Now we are moving on to the next segment, which is the panel discussion. So let me re-invite Tony, and we also have a new panelist as well, which is Kai. Kai, are you here? Let's see.
Hello.
All right. Yes. Hi. Okay, so what's going to happen is that we're going to be doing some discussion here, but any of you participants, if you're interested to ask any question, please do not hesitate to put in the chat button. I'll continue to keep a lookout. And if let's say we miss any of the question during this panel discussion, you can feel free to drop Tony an email or even drop me an email as well, and we'll follow up from there too, okay? Now, among the three of us, I think this is the first time we meet Kai. Right, so Kai, why not you introduce yourself first?
Hi, my name is Hairia, but people call me Kai. I am 44 years old this Saturday. Grateful people doesn't look old. Yes, I'm 44. Yeah. I'm a private hire driver. I go around helping people out as much as I can at any time that I can fit in. Yeah. That's just me. I just love helping people around. Yeah. I think Hamida Bashwan, you might know me because you know my mom.
Oh, your friends here. Nice.
That's my mom's student, actually.
Oh, okay. Okay, so many of us here might wonder why is Kai here with us, right? And you might have read her story on Straits Times, but maybe Kai, for those who are not aware, why don't you share a little bit of what you shared with Straits Times?
Okay, usually in Straits, what I stated in Straits Times, or what I do usually drive at night. What I do is that not say, because I'm an ex-prison officer and I'm also an ex-paramedic, I do around helping people a lot. So basically, sorry, what I do is that I will profile them, I will talk to them, have a chat. Sometimes when I find that they are way off, there are signs of red flags, I will start to engage them in a more deeper conversation. So as the conversation get deeper, I, as a community carer, I'll be the bridge for them to get professional help. Because at the end of the day, they will ask me, hey, I think I'm done down here. I think I've already spoke to you. I'm good. But I will assess that. I said, if they are good to go, I will let them go. If they are not good to go, I will stop the car, sit down with them, convince them and talk to them and chat with them and say that, hey, you really need help. Don't be afraid in seeking help. I'm just a bridge. I'm not a professional counselor for you, but I'm here to help you. Okay, if you need my help, if you need someone to be there with you, because I don't judge you, I can sit down with you at IMH. I spend about 3 hours, maybe 4, just to spend time with her at IMH to get her assessed and to get her treated. And then in order for her to doesn't have that suicidal tendency. We ended up the conversation with a hug, which one of the doctors have already mentioned is an emotional CPR. I always put my left chest towards the party's left chest. Okay, that deep hug, just 1 minute of hug, can do a lot to a person. It can really change the mood of a person.
So I just have a quick follow-up question for you, Kai, because I'm also wondering myself, because for Caring for Life, we run live training, which is the suicide prevention training, in which you also attended as well, right?
Yeah.
And a lot of our participants shared this with us, is that while we do the practice and the role play, because it's only a scenario, it's easier to handle. But when if it's someone that you know, right, especially if it's your loved one, it's very hard to stay calm or stay sensitive or stay empathetic, because we just want to help as fast as we can, and we want to just go in and say all the assurance words and things like that. Right. So I'm just wondering, when you were supporting those people who had suicide ideation, what was going through your mind and how was it like for you?
First thing for me is to stay calm. one thing is that once I make myself calm, like for example, if they say, they won't tell you that, hey, I want to jump. I'm going to this building because I'm going to jump. No, they will tell me that, when they are going to an abandoned building, who goes to an abandoned building at night? Who goes to a building so tall at night when there's offices are closed? So these are the red flags for you. So you're just like, hi, you okay? Do you need help? Or if it happens to my own family members, okay, which some of them are cousins, all these are going through, I will sit down. I won't say that, hey, you okay lah? No, there's nothing wrong with you, no. But I won't go for that. I will just like, I have empathy. I bring in the empathy. I will sit down and say, hey, I heard you're not well. You want to chat? Or should we go for an ice cream? Ice cream works very well because kakak belanja, so ice cream goes very well. So when you go and eat ice cream, you sit down over ice cream, some of them tends to let it flow because I say that, hey, I'm not going to judge you for anything. I know you since you were born. But the thing is that if you feel comfortable to talk, we talk. Sometimes it doesn't go on first try, to be honest. Okay, it takes a multiple try for you to really sit down and give a listening ear, show concern, give a listening ear. Not to, for me, I don't bug my cousins or whatever and say that, hey, you okay not? You okay not? You okay not? I don't do that every day. Then I say, just say that, I send prayers. Say, I hope your day is better today. Hey, kakak is around your area. You want to come down for coffee? We can go for coffee, all this kind of stuff. So you try to engage them in getting them to be with you. See? That's what I usually do.
Wow, that's very inspiring indeed. Yeah, thank you so much for sharing. But let me swing the angle a little bit to Tony, because Kai was mentioning about us supporting a person with suicide ideation.
Yep.
And many of times for a person with suicide ideation, they'll share things like, there's nothing worth living for, right? Or like, I've lost everything. So from the resilience perspective, it might seem that they no longer feel that resilience is important. So what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think when people are feeling a really acute sense of loss, there's nothing left to live for, really bad things have happened. Sometimes the most important thing that you can do with them, well, there are a couple of things. Number one, if you really are worried that this person is close to killing themselves, then I think you need to intervene really strongly. The first thing we need to do is help people to stay alive, because you can't build resilience once you're dead, right? So we want to make sure we help people stay safe and stay alive. Within that, one of the most important things you can do is just to reach out and connect to the person, to sit with them while they're sad and struggling with these difficulties. I often think about Kevin Hines, who is a great advocate for suicide prevention. Kevin is one of the few people that jumped off the Golden Gate Bridge in San Francisco and survived. And he tells a very eloquent story about walking up onto the bridge, planning to jump and kill himself, and bargaining with himself along the way, saying, if just one person stops and says, how are you doing? Are things okay? I won't do it. So just that simple human connection, a little social connection and reaching out and being with somebody can make all the difference.
Yeah, I think that's a wonderful sharing. And many of times, even for someone who's having suicide ideation, maybe a part of them is also hoping for a reason to live. If just any one of them just reach out to them, perhaps that might become the first lifeline. And from there, maybe proceed to start finding other purpose to live or a journey to recovery. So this brings me to the next group of people who were suicide attempt survivors. So you mentioned about Calvin Hine. So for them, how does resilience looks like?
Yeah, well, I think that the basics of it are really similar. People who have had loved ones die by suicide, are struggling with their own set of really bad things that have occurred. It is just a crushing kind of blow. I've never had personally a close relative die by suicide, but I've lost friends to that, and you always find yourself, in addition to the pain and the grief of losing someone, second guessing yourself. Is there something I could have done that would have kept this from happening? And there always seems to be a sense of guilt that goes along with it too, deserved or not. And I think that the response to people struggling with that kind of loss is sort of the same, reaching out and walking with them, being, there and available to them, just having somebody present with you while you're making that path along through your grief can make all the difference. I had a son who died of SIDS a number of years ago, and there was nothing that anybody was going to do that was going to make that situation better. It was awful, and it was what it was. But having people around me who were willing to walk with me while I made my way through that and help me and support me in those moments made all the difference.
Yeah, and maybe I just take this time to introduce a little bit of Caring for Life's program. So we have this module 1, which is the suicide life training for community carers. And this particular training is relevant even for people who are not professionals themselves or have not gone through any form of mental health programs. They can still come for our module 1 because we will equip them with this basic life skills that helps them to identify early suicide ideation and followed by what are the steps you can take. Then we also have the module 2, which is what we call the Life Plus training program. These are from the professional, the service providers, if they want to pick up a little bit additional skills in this area as well. And something that we recently have launched is module 3 and 4, which is the rebuilding journey, where we run these support group programs for suicide loss survivors, which is what you're mentioning earlier about, suicide attempt survivors, even for community carers, like close friends who are caring for them. Right. So these are the series of programs that we Caring for Life we are running. And maybe I just want to take this opportunity as well. If there's any of you here in the participants that you feel that either you yourself will benefit from the program, or if you know of friends who will benefit from this program, please do not hesitate to connect with us. And all our programs are free of charge, right? Sponsored by our donors and all the supports that we have been getting. Yeah. So maybe I go back to, yes.
Alex, if you don't mind my saying so, I think the Caring for Life's approach to this is just brilliant. Like I was saying earlier, too often we think of suicide as being the responsibility of social workers and psychologists and doctors and nurses. It's a clinical problem. But suicide is a community problem. It belongs to all of us, and solving it belongs to all of us, and supporting survivors is something that we all have responsibility for and can do. And the approach that you're taking of how do we build relationships and educate and support, not just little groups of people, but the whole community, is the way that we're going to solve the problem of suicide.
Thank you for sharing. Okay, I have a question from the participants. This lady, Cindy, she said that she currently organizes activities for seniors to promote active aging. How would you suggest that we can teach seniors to have a happier and more resilient mindset? Oh, that's a great question. So just want to hear your thoughts on this, Tony.
Yeah, it is a great question. And I touched on just a few examples of how you build resilience, but there are many others. And, would be happy to talk offline in a call that we can do about that. But I think the strategy for seniors is very, very similar. How do you help people to build a sense of resilience and inner strength in the face of challenges that they face? And as we get older, we have special sets of challenges. Physically, things get harder. The kinds of losses that we experience along the way get more difficult. The transition from a working life into retirement and identity changes that occur, all of these things are more significant. I mean, there's a reason that isolation and loneliness gets greater in seniors than it is in a younger population. And so all the things I talked about in terms of building resilience are applicable to seniors. some basics around helping to make sure that people stay as strong as they can physically and paying attention to exercise and sleep and nutrition. Those all make a big difference. Purpose and meaning is really different for seniors, as we give up the lives that we used to have. And I'm kind of getting into that group. I'm sort of that age. We pass from the life we used to have into what our new life is. What's our sense of purpose and meaning in our new reality? How do we help rebuild that? Focusing on those kinds of things are really important as well in helping seniors to find their way through the challenges that they face. And I did see that question in chat and would be happy to follow up on that offline.
Okay, thanks, Tony, for your sharing. I think Kai, you have something you wanted to ask. You're muted, Kai.
He said he's going to share his slides, Dr. Tony. So I'm hoping for that, yeah.
Oh, you want a copy of his slides, right?
Yes, I just want to go in depth about what he is teaching, because I thought of furthering my studies, because a lot of them are telling me that, oh, go for your diploma in counseling, you can do it, but you're just lazy. And I was like, yeah, I got so many things to do. Now I need the slot time for diploma in counseling. What?
Okay, so I think the same goes to any of the participants. If you would like to have a copy of Tony's slide, please do not hesitate to drop me an email, alexyo@caringforlifesg.org. We'll be more than happy to share with you the slides. But I just want to go back to Kai, right? You have shared quite a fair bit about how you have supported people with suicide ideation. I'm just wondering, because you also attended the live training as well, right?
Yes.
How was it for you?
One thing is that when I attended the course, right, at first I managed to do it on my own. But when I attended the course, it gave me more confidence to build the bridge for this type of people, for these people with suicidal ideation, right, to go and seek help, and the methods on how to go. Because sometimes we have the thoughts that, people will tell us, no lah, I'm going to kill myself. Then people will have the thoughts that, oh, this one say only but never go. Don't take it easy. I lost a friend for that. He said that he wants to kill himself. I said, yeah, he's just joking. I push him away, but he fly. He fly down. Okay, so basically, not to take things lightly. That's one thing. Second thing is that there's always another way around, where they will tell you that they wanted to end their life, but they don't tell you directly. For example, I have another friend who recently lost his wife to cancer. The wife only got cancer for 2 months. She passed away last fasting month, leaving 3 kids, one with Down syndrome, 2 years old. So what happened was that whenever our school friends, okay, the wife was very lucky that we have a lot of school friend classmates who are very close with her. We asked him, hey, dude, do you need help? Whatever help you need, we are able to help. So we realized that he was neither here nor there. Okay, during the period that we brought the wife for palliative care, every one of us chip in. We go on shift to help to care for his wife with him. So we will be there, we talk to him, and after the wife passed away, we bring him out and the kids, play futsal, go for barbecue, do a lot of activities. And there's one time I brought him along, I brought him out to see a doctor because he was not well. I asked him, what's going on in your mind? Because you're so quiet. He was only telling me that, in my mind, my thoughts right now, I just want to be with her. I don't want to think of anything else. Is that a red flag? Yes. Where do I learn it? From you guys. So the course is actually something that, it really opened up my mind to see around the problem, not only into the problem, but around the problem. There's a lot of things which transpires from there. So thankfully right now, going like a few months towards her death, but he is managing with the kids. Yeah. Doing well, not say so too well, but we are still supporting her. Supporting him in whatever things that he do.
So I think on this note, we are aware of the rising trend of suicide among youths. So I thought I just want to end off with this as the last question. There's this question on the topic of resilience. Given that the youth today tend to experience various negative emotions like depression, stress, identity crisis, secondary to JC transition changes, which is the different levels in the academic system, what advice would you offer to us to guide these youth when they feel lost and drowning? So I thought I just want to let both Tony and Kai share your thoughts on this as the end of the panelist discussion.
Yeah, we go for the boss first.
Oh, yeah, thank you. Because it's a really challenging thing. And as you saw in the little bit of data in the beginning of my presentation, while I think Singapore is doing an impressive job of reducing suicide risk overall, suicide risk for young people continues to climb. It's a really complicated world out there for all of us, and certainly for young people, it's very, very difficult. I think that all the things that we talk about in building resilience apply to young people as well, but the exact strategies for doing that may look a little different. One of the most important parts of it, I think, is social connection for young people. When we think about being 15, 18, 22, our social connection and our friends are so central to who we are and how we are in the world. And I think the work that Caring for Life is doing around peer education and peer support for young people is so important. How can we educate more young people to be tuned in on, this person may be at a little bit of risk. Here are things I can do to be more supportive. How can I reach out and help to build social connection and use this person's desire for more connection to other people? How can I use that connection desire that they have to link with them and support them and recognize when things are really getting bad and get them to help? So I think the education that you're doing with young people and building networks is so critical.
Thank you. Kai?
Sorry. For me, right, when it comes to deal with youngsters nowadays, teenagers nowadays, it's different from the time that when I was there before. What we have to do right now is to exercise more empathy. It's best to listen, let them have a say, let them talk. Because kids nowadays, okay, it's not like last time during my time, what my mother said, yes. What my father said, yes. No means no, okay? But kids nowadays, they have their own thoughts. They have their own minds, and they like to explore and see. And what we mention to them is what they are going to absorb in, because they respect you as an elder. They expect you to be telling you the truth. So they will be like, Mommy, is it, this is the way how things is going to be done? Then I said, yeah, no lah, it's not going to be done this way, So people will be like, they will have that thought that day. Then my mom say, oh, no. So but when they find out that something is different, then it's their thoughts, they have their own mind. So be empathetic, sit down, listen, have, don't jump the gun. That's very important. Don't jump the gun. Let them talk first. Once they finish talking, then we start to address the issue one after another. Okay, and there's one thing also, after one after another, that doesn't mean we stop down there. We do have follow-ups, because at the end of the day, these are our kids, these are the one that we love, and these are the one who's going to continue our generation. Okay, yes, that's all.
Thank you so much for the heartfelt sharing from both Tony and Kai. As usual, I always learn a lot interacting with both of you. So on this note, I just want to reintroduce our 4 training programs: the live training, Live Plus for service providers, and the support group program for suicide loss survivors and suicide attempt survivors. Please do not hesitate to reach out to us, whether is it via our Facebook, our website, or even through email. If you feel that there are people who will benefit from this program, all programs that we run are free of charge because of the support that we've been getting. I really appreciate both Tony and Kai's time. Back to you, Joyda.
Thank you so much, Alex. And thank you so much to our panelists, Tony and Kai, for the sharing. Personally, I have benefited from live training as well. I'm a volunteer for CFL. And I think what Tony and Kai has shared really reminds me that, one thing I really learned from live training is to really listen. And also this relationship building with the people that we are caring for. And I think today I learned from Tony as well that, building this resilience within ourselves is also so important. We have to be strong so that we can care for the people around us. So thank you so much again, once again to our panelists and Alex as well for moderating the discussion. Of course, we hope that we have more time that, we can go for the discussion, but to honor everyone's time, we also come to the end of the webinar. But before we all leave, okay, that's very important announcement that we have for everyone here. So we want to listen more to everyone. And here we have our feedback to this webinar. We hope that you can complete this feedback before you go off from this webinar. And while you are scanning the QR code and also doing the feedback, let me make this announcement now. We are going to do a photo taking at the end. So while you are doing your feedback, you can also, touch up and put on your makeups, and then later you can on your video. All right. So back to this feedback form, you may also indicate your interest for the events. Okay. Caring for Life staff will actually contact you on the events at a later date. Do note that the events, like what Alex has mentioned, are free for all to attend. Donation are welcome, and all proceeds of the donation goes to CFL's training fund to sponsor the suicide prevention programs. Your feedback is highly valuable for the continuous improvement that CFL can have in serving the needs of the community. So please help us to complete the feedback form. So let me see. Some of you are asking for the link. Are we going to provide them with the link?
Yep. Give us 1 minute. Gonna put it in now.
Thank you so much. Yeah.
No problem. Okay.
Yeah. So some of you can actually scan the QR code. Some of you can actually click the link when it's ready. Yeah. And yeah. Let's give you some time to do this feedback, okay? But please do not leave us without taking the photo, all right? Yeah, thank you so much. Okay, so Alex has put up the form. Okay, please take a look at the chat box. And for the rest of us, if you are ready, you can switch on your videos after you have touched up. Put on your makeups, okay? If not, it's okay. Don't worry, we still look good, okay? Because we are all very grateful people as well. Yeah, so don't worry about that. Okay. Maybe we'll give you all another, maybe 1 more minute, okay? So once you are ready, you can switch on your video so that we know that, when we can start to take the photos. Okay, I see that more people are switching on your video. Thank you so much. For the rest of you, yes, please complete the feedback form. All right, so Alex, how shall we take photo now?
All right, let's do it.
Okay.
So very simple. Everyone, just look at the camera. When I say 1, 2, 3, smile, just keep smiling because there's actually a few of you, so I need to take 2 shots. It's 2 different screens. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, smile. Okay, give me a minute. Keep smiling, keep smiling, keep smiling. Don't stop. Okay, keep smiling. And 1, 2, 3, smile. Okay, let me check. Beautiful. Thank you very much, everyone.
Okay, thank you so much, Alex. Okay, so thank you so much, everyone, for your participation at this webinar. Thank you for our speakers, Tony and Kai, and all the CFL team. Okay, I know they are all working behind the scene. Yeah, so let's give them a round of applause as well for holding this, organizing this webinar. Thank you so much. Yeah. So may everyone have a good rest tonight, and thank you.